This episode of World Talk contains mature themes for mature audiences only. The opinions expressed by the guest and host are our own and don't represent any business or organization. Hello and welcome to a new episode of World Talk. Today I am joined with lead sports journalist from the Cayman Compass, Seaford Russell Jr. Seaford, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Philip. Thank you.
Now, for those who are listening, me and Seaford actually used to work together at a beautiful news organization called Cayman 27, and we have a mutual friend who also used to work with us named Giovanni Ebanks. And when Seaford joined us at Cayman 27, Giovanni pulled me aside and was like, yo, man, I'm so proud of Seaford. Like, I knew him as a boy. I knew how he grew up. And to see him, like, here in the newsroom with us, like, it's, like, what an honor. And that's where I want to begin. Seaford Russell, actually, I jumped the gun on that. I start the show off every way the same way. But I guess I'm just so excited. I completely forgot my core question is, Seaford, where were you born, and describe it in 3 words?
Where was I born? Describe it in 3 words. What do you mean describe it in 3 words?
Yeah, just, like first 3 words when you think of where you were born, what are the first 3 words that pop into your head?
Well, born here in Cayman Islands.
Yeah. Grand Cayman.
Grand Cayman. Describe where I was born in 3 words, so I'm assuming the country.
Yeah?
Well, I can start with paradise.
It is?
I'll go ahead and say, I guess tourism destination takes up all my words.
Hey, it is. Cayman is that spot.
But, there's a lot of things to describe Cayman. Or to describe Cayman as, it's a country with many names known to people and a lot of names that aren't known to people.
Exactly. And for those on social media, you can find us at the hashtag #WeLiveWhereYouVacay.
There you go.
So going back to what I was saying earlier, Seaford, I want to start with your upbringing because it's rather unique and there was a lot of trials and tribulations which you've managed to overcome, and I think that's a beautiful story. So let's start there. What was your upbringing like? What was your family dynamic situation?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, to go back to what Giovanni said to you when I joined Cayman 27, I think what he was referencing is, my time spent in school. And during school time, George Hicks, John Gray, those days, I got into a lot of fights. I got into a lot of fights. More often than not, I would get into fights with kids that were older than me in older years, security guards, teachers, even.
You just fighting everybody.
I was fighting everybody, and the kids that were my age, I didn't want to fight any of them. There was a few of them that were my age that were on par with me, and I think that they understood the lifestyle that I grew up in, and it was mutual respect there. And a lot of times, I wouldn't even dare to mess with some of them. To be honest with you, they say every man has their match.
Yeah. And
I definitely had my matches when I was in school. I don't ever claim to be the baddest boy in school or any of those things, but I certainly wasn't afraid of anybody.
I gotta ask though, were people picking on you and you're like, nah, let's fight? Or were you actively searching for fights?
I was never somebody that searched for fights. In fact, I defended more people. I think what it really came down to was an ego thing. From a very young age, a lot of us, we carried that massive ego of who was the toughest guy in school. And sometimes you get this tough guy over here saying something about you. And then, as kids, it's immature. People carry news back to you or something. And
so-and-so said such and such.
And people just poke the bear enough until a fight breaks out and everybody is entertained. But I don't think that it was me searching for a fight. I think, fights just found me. And I oftentimes went looking for fights depending on the situation. I remember one time, this kid that was younger than me, I don't want to say his name. I don't want, bring any attention to him, but he came to me and he was like, this guy, he's bullying me or whatever the case is. And I didn't like the guy anyway. So I was like,
the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
This is perfect. Let's go. But all that ego and that anger and that willingness to fight was something that I grew up around. Like, you talked about a little bit about my upbringing, me trying to explain that a bit. But that is a very long road that me and you can go down, Philip. But to summarize it a bit for you, yeah, I didn't have the worst upbringing, but I certainly didn't have the best upbringing. And I always try to bear that in mind when I speak about my life, because as hard as it was for me and my family, I know that there's so many other people out there struggling worse than I did. And my struggles were I was homeless before. I lived in a car with my mother and my older brother. Mother was a young teenage girl, and
your mother was a teenager.
Yeah, she was a teenager with two kids, and she fell into the traps, the generational curses that most poor black people fall into, and I say that because that is the reality. And I know that curses can be broken, but it's easier said than done.
Could you talk about what that curse is?
Well, I think it's a very general thing. When you're in a poor environment, and in most cases that's the black people. Yes, there are poor white people as well that are living in terrible conditions and all this other stuff, and other nationalities as well. But I think for the most part, and especially when we're speaking about North and South America and the Caribbean as a whole, the black people, they're the ones that are sort of stuck in the gutters, and that's a long history that we can get into. But once you're there, everything that comes with it is crime, and you see crime, and a lot of people try to stay away from it, but you get caught in the system a lot of times, and you do things as a young child and you can't get away from it. And I think my mother, she got caught in that system. She always wanted to be a great person. That was always the dream. That was always the goal for her to, succeed in life. And thankfully she has succeeded in life up to this day. But back then, she didn't get everything right, and that's okay. We struggled because of that. I feel like I kind of going off the rails here, but
I'll bring you back. Don't worry about it. So let's start with what was that like living in a car? I can't imagine at all. I've slept in my car like once, but that was my choice. But like, what was that like?
Well, I was pretty young. I was pretty young back then. Those conditions kind of, forced the government to get involved, and we were placed in foster care, and. Yeah,
and that's okay. It's
but
right.
These things are touchy for me, and sometimes I don't want to speak out of term, and because I know these stuff also make my mother sad, and I don't want her to hear this and feel sad. But it didn't end there. That was sort of the easier part for me, anyway. I think where I became angry and where I became, of the mentality to want to fight and make people respect me or people fear me or whatever the case is, was when Hurricane Ivan hit. And when Ivan hit, Actually, we're in the season now of Ivan.
Yeah, and actually the anniversary for Ivan was yesterday.
Correct. Yeah. When that storm hit, that took everything away from us, and we started from scratch again. We were placed in these government trailer homes. I don't know if you remember them, but they had a ton of trailer homes on island after Ivan,
Mm-hmm.
and we lived in that trailer for about 7 years. We call it Trailer Park. It was down. It was right across the road from Triple C. And everyone that lived in that trailer park was criminals.
Dang.
Every single person that lived down there, at least every male that lived down there, every one of them has met their fair share of the law. And I grew up around all of them. So I saw everything that you can imagine. I've seen guys get chopped. I've seen guys get shot. I've seen guys fall down in front of me and I thought they were dead. I've seen arguments and police raids, and during that time, we got raided a lot in our home. Police would kick the door down at 2-3 o'clock in the morning with dogs, and this is a 1.5 bedroom trailer. We were all sleeping in the same areas, and dogs, and we just forced to get out of the house in pitch darkness. And gosh, the only thing that's lighting up the place is the red and blue from the cars and the flashlights from the police. That's all the lights that you're getting there, and they're just searching and doing their thing. Drugs and ammunition they're looking for, and right, 4 or 5 hours later, I'm on a school bus.
Dang.
Heading to school.
Like, and do you think because of your home life, you had to show like more security in school? Like in terms of, you had to be like, you were talking about ego and like a young man has something to prove. Do you feel like you had more to prove because of the situation you grew up in?
Yeah, I think I felt like I had a lot to prove to it's difficult because I want to say that I just felt misunderstood. I felt like, honestly, when I was in school, I was trying to be somebody that I wasn't. I really wanted to be something in life, and I tried to hang out with, some of the kids that weren't necessarily in the same environment as me, just to try and fit in with them. And I would stay clear of all the girls that I knew had similar backgrounds to me, because I knew I wouldn't, progress if we're in the same situation together. I needed somebody to uplift me. Anyway, that's how I was raised to think. Like, you need someone to help elevate your mind and change the way that you think, rather than staying, with someone who is going to argue with you and want to fight with you, or going to do this and do that. Find somebody that'll balance you out a bit, or try to balance you out. You can either work or it won't. Simple as that. And yeah, when I was in school, I wanted to be different, but when you got angry, the true you came out, and that happened way too often. I came to school angry already, so it wasn't like I could hide that off the bat. I was just a very angry kid. People would see me down the park and down the school corridor. I remember this girl one time saw me, and she used to hang out with a girl that I knew at the time, and I said, "Why you always stay clear of me?" And she looked at me and she said, "Because you're always so angry."
Oh, jeez.
I'll never forget that. And people do say that I can curse on this show. Yeah, people do say that I have like a resting bitch face all the time. I look very angry all the time.
I never thought that of you, and we've known each other for about 6 years.
Well, it's because when I'm around you, it's always good, positive vibes, so it's easy to be around you, Philip.
Yeah. Who is your father, Seaford Russell Sr.?
Oh,
There's definitely a lot of people in the older generations. They know that name.
yes, and I don't know what titles they have of him, but as of late, I've really found a fondness for my father.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like that for years. I really hated him for years, and I don't know if it's because I've become a father, but I've grown to love him even though he's gone now. But he was what I call like a mad genius. Very, very smart person who made poor decisions. Very, very smart person who made poor decisions. And unfortunately, those poor decisions captivated him in his entire life. And that was who he was, and that is who people saw him as. They didn't see him as an author. He was an author. He wrote many books. They're sold on Amazon right now to this day.
Really?
Yeah. He wrote all those books when he was in prison. It's funny. My father actually, when I was born, my father came out of prison. The police brought him out from northward with handcuffs on his hand and chains wrapped around his feet to sign my birth certificate.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But he fell in. Yeah, I can talk about him for ages, to be honest with you, but it really depends on what you want to know about him.
Well, I just wanted to get. I mean, I've heard things like he was just this figure in Cayman streets. That's all I heard.
Yeah, well-known guy, especially in Rock Hole, especially. He owned apartments down in there once upon a time, and Rock Hole is an area in Cayman that doesn't have the greatest reputation amongst other areas, but that was where my father thrived and did everything and all things criminal activity.
Were you brought into this life? Like, were you and your brother involved in his activities growing up?
No, because he wasn't around, but it's just environment. That's what it was. It's just environment, being a part of it. It's hard to escape it when you're surrounded by that 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
The only break we get away from a criminal life is when we go to school, and it doesn't shut off there, because sometimes the friends that you have, and I know that I said that I try to keep away from people who raised in similar backgrounds, but it's difficult because at the end of the day, those are the people that you can relate to most.
Right.
So really and truly, it didn't shut off. Though in school, actually, it was probably the time where you carried on the worst, and showed the colors that you couldn't show in front of your parents, because you get your mouth popped if you said certain things. Even though these are the things that you see every day, they expect you not to do it in front of them. It's like a father saying, "Don't smoke cigarettes," but he blows cigarette smoke right in the same area as you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you didn't do it there in front of them, but when you escape their presence, that is when you did it. And school was like that break for us to do all the things that we see at home. So we're around it 24/7.
Dang. How? I'm trying to think of how to ask this question. So this is the only way I know how. Both your father and your older brother?
Yeah.
Both your father and your older brother were killed.
Mm.
What was that moment like for you?
Well, for my brother, that was a tough pill to swallow.
And that was your older brother?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Is Jason.
Jason.
Yeah. Because he was like my father figure.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up under his arm, literally.
How much older was he to you?
4.5 years. 4.5 years.
All right.
Yeah. But he died at 18 years old. They murdered him at 18, but if you ever met him, you'd never think that he was 18. He had a lot of man characteristics about him.
Do you think because of the environment you guys grew up in,
Exactly.
he grew up much faster?
Exactly. That's exactly it.
And he had to take care of you.
Exactly. So he put on the man hat from a very early age, and he learned how to survive. He learned how to do things that, in fact, most men couldn't do. He was very, very educated on the streets. And there wasn't anything that you can crook him on out there. No matter your age or how experienced you were out on those streets, you couldn't crook him. And he was one of those guys that was feared from a very young age. And you know, again, it's a cycle. You know, it's a cycle that you fall into. My grandmother was in that cycle. Both of them, actually. And then my father and my mother fell into that cycle. And then their kids fell into that cycle. Me included, I was in that cycle. My trajectory was supposed to be prison or death. My brother's death woke me up a bit, though. It really did, because I remember after he passed away, they shot and killed him on Crew Road. A guy came out of Northward, and he saw me at Mostyn's gas station in Bordentown, and he looked at me and he said, "Seaford, I hear them man inside Northward plotting for you next." And mind you, I was only about, I want to say I was about 14 at the time. But that's how crazy the streets are. The streets don't care about your age or nothing. It's killed or be killed. And that was a time in Cayman where it was deadly. These guys were not playing around. I don't know if you remember Bloody September, where it was just back to back to back kills. Everybody was just dying all over the place. And it was all teenagers. It was all teenagers in 2011. And yeah, you know, they thought because I was Jason's brother that I would more than likely retaliate. But the truth of the matter is, when I got that message, that scared the living lights out of me, because I realized that this life isn't for me. It scared me. I was a young boy who did not sleep for 3 nights after I got that message. I could not sleep. I remember it to this day.
Were you just looking over your shoulder the whole time?
I thought somebody was going to come to my mother's house and kill me.
Jeez.
And my family.
Yeah.
That is what I was thinking.
Because you've seen, like, this is a reality for you. This is not a pipe dream.
No. This is something that I understand 100%. And I know that it can happen. It is not. It wasn't something that I took as a joke. This is something that kept me off the streets and fearing for my life at a very young age, because I know that these people are serious, and I know that if they had one opportunity to kill me, they would.
What's scary about that story is that threat came out of Northwood Prison, and on paper, prison is where you go to reform your criminal deeds. But it seems like them, man, were just comfortable up there that they could use the protection of being in Northwood to continue their criminal activities.
Oh yeah. Well,
that's another discussion. Could you talk about the death of your father?
Yeah. Well, his death came shortly after my brother's. In fact, the year after. My brother died in September of 2011, and my father died in October of 2012. So just barely a year over, I experienced the second tragic death of my life.
Could you explain that year for you? Because after you're at the gas station and you hear this threat in your life and you're scared, is at that moment when you start to transition your life or figure out a new trajectory for you? Yeah,
no, that year I didn't change automatically, and I didn't to be honest with you, that year was probably the year that if the system was going to catch me, it would have catch me that year.
That was a bad year for you.
It was a bad year for me because I had some real bad intentions that year, and you know, I won't get into
you were just in
I
a bad place.
I was in a bad place that year, and I could have made a lot of poor decisions during that time.
Let me ask you, with those poor decisions, let's say you did make those poor decisions, do you think you'd still be in Northward from those poor decisions?
Yeah, I think I'd be northward from those poor decisions.
And this is what, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Dang.
I could definitely been in Northward or Eagle House at the time because that's what it was. But yeah, I wasn't in a good place that time. I was really, even though I got that threat from Northward, that made me very fearful. I really hurt when my brother died. I really hurt when my brother died.
Because he pretty much raised you.
Yeah. He was my everything, man. He was my everything. That guy, outside of my mother anyway, he was there for me. He protected me. And then I had to step up and be the man of the house.
At 14.
Yeah, you know, it was a tough year.
And then going through that, the death of your father, can you talk about that?
Yeah, and then, you know, that year after, my father basically gets tortured in Honduras.
Oh my God!
Basically, they sent him back in a wooden box from Honduras, you know, with marks around his wrists. It looked like somebody like tied up his hands or something, and bruises all over his body, and you know, and a gunshot wound. But the worst part about my father's death was that whoever killed him, they put him in a garbage bag. They threw him in the river, and a woman washing her clothes at the riverside saw this bag, and she saw a limb sticking out of it, a human limb sticking out of it, and that's how they found him, because he was gone for a couple of days. Nobody knew where he was.
Mm-hmm.
And that is how they discovered his body.
What did that have? How did that affect you? I mean, you were what, about 15 at the time?
Yeah. It was at the time it hurt me, but it didn't hurt as much as my brother. These days, I feel a lot more pain. And I guess that's all this the grief that I should have had for my father all those years ago. I'm feeling it today. All these years later, 10 years, 11 years, whatever it is later.
Do you think that's because you are a father yourself now?
Yeah. And I know what I do for my daughter, and I know all the sacrifices that I made for my daughter, and I guess a part of me just... Yeah. Part of me just wished that, like, I could have seen my father do that for me in a way, you know. And
I think it's beautiful, though. I think it is beautiful, though, that even though, like, you long for your father, that you are in a position now to take care of your daughter in a healthy manner. You have. I'm not going to air out your situation, but
yeah,
you know, you're married. You have you live. I know where you live, but the people don't need to know where you live, but you know, you have a spot, you know, you have a car, you're a well-respected man in the community, which we'll get into. I mean, you're the lead sports journalist in the Compass. You definitely put your life in a completely new trajectory. So that's actually what I wanted to talk about, is with the losses of your brother and your father, how did you get your life on the straight and narrow? Because as you said, you were headed straight for either death or northward.
Well, that was from sadness to a bit of something that's funny here. It wasn't funny to me at the time, but when it was one day, I didn't have a job and I was just sitting at my mother's house doing absolutely nothing. And she looked at me one day and she said, "I'm so disappointed." And that hit me. I mean, like somebody took a knife and stabbed me in my heart, because she is the only person that I wanted to make happy at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the one person that I'm doing this life for. All my prayers back then was just, God, let me be successful to feed back, to give back to my mother for everything that she sacrificed for me. That was it. She was my only one. And when she said that to me, I'm like, I have to try and get off my ass and try to get things done here, because I need to make her happy. She's been through so much in life. I don't want to add to her burden.
Mm-hmm.
And I always knew that I didn't want to add to her burden. And like I said, I always wanted to be something in life. And but it's difficult. And you know, I got a little job. I was working at Blackbeard's for a while, and you know, I was able to buy my own car there, and I started to assist her with bills and stuff like that. And
slowly but surely getting things together.
So and you know, when you get a job, sometimes you just meet people, and you know, a lot of times they give you a different perspective of life, and you know, you show me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you is, and
I'll show you your future.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
I
I
get
just
you.
kind of surrounded myself with people who wanted to push me forward. You know, saw that this kid has a lot going on. Let's try and help him. And I was fortunate enough that, you know, people over at, you know, CDG and Blackbeard's, they always gave me advice. So yeah, I guess that's where my trajectory started to change. It changed even more so when I got over to Cayman 27.
How'd you make that jump?
So what happened was I had applied for a weekend photographer position at 27, and you know, because I just wanted to make extra cash on the side at Blackbeard's, and I just started doing these gigs over the weekend, and
Hold on. When you saw this posting, is this something that like interested you, or were you just like, oh, this is just another way for me to make money?
Yeah, it was just another way for me to make money.
Fair.
I had no experience in photography outside of taking pictures on my phone.
Yeah.
And so I got that job, and what happened was, at the time, 2 reporters left basically simultaneously. It was you and Jevy. And Kevin who was my boss at the time, who was the editor at 27 at the time.
Yep.
He basically was very short staff, and he was like, "Seaford, you want a trainee reporter gig here? Because we need some people on board."
Yep.
And I was like, "Heck yeah. This is it. This is it here. This is my opportunity to show the world what I am made of." Literally, it came on because everybody was watching then. Yeah, and I remember there, I worked 7 days a week at Cayman 27.
Yep.
I worked so hard.
Because you still had that weekend gig.
Yeah, I still had the weekend. They still needed somebody to go on the weekends.
Yep.
And so I was a trainee throughout the week, still writing articles, and then I had to go out on the weekends to shoot everything for everybody.
Yep.
And I was so tired, but at the same time, I was so grateful. I was so grateful because I knew that this opportunity that I'd been given is once in a lifetime. It really is. This doesn't come around to ever and anybody. Certainly not in other countries. Cayman is the exception, right? Because This is a place where if you know people kind of thing.
Yeah, Cayman makes no sense to me sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, there was no chance that I was getting a reporter's job in a place like America or UK without a degree.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff. Yeah.
You just wanted extra money.
Yeah,
that's how you got into it.
But it's all about opportunity. It's all
Yeah.
about opportunity, and yeah, that's another topic for another day, I suppose.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. So what was it like being getting into journalism, or I guess reporting at the time? What was that like for you? Because it's a completely different world. Because let's say you're at a car accident. It's like the paramedics, the fire department, the police, and you. And they're all like, yo, kids, stay out of our way.
Right.
But you have to be there at just these interesting moments in time. The unveiling of something else. Like there's all these big politicians and you. And then a couple hours later, you might be covering some store that got broken into. It's an interesting way of life.
It was definitely a change in scenery. I was like a fish out of water for sure. When I joined Cayman 27, but I faked it to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I pretend like I knew what the heck I was talking about at times.
Absolutely.
And I just pretend a lot of the way. In fact, I pretend so much that I realized that who I really was who I was showing people. It wasn't a true reflection of who I was, and I wanted to try to find that balance, because people could see through the crap. And I was there trying to put on a white boy accent or a proper accent, and I feel like you can still have your Cayman accent and still sound professional.
Yes.
And I didn't understand that when I first joined Cayman 27. I was just trying to talk like somebody that's not from this country.
Like Joe Avery.
Exactly. Yeah. And people would come up to me and be like, "You lived in the States or something?" What's going on here? You know what I mean? Yeah, and that didn't feel good either, because it was like, boy, people think that I'm fake now, so I gotta start finding a balance.
Mm-hmm. When you got into news, what stories did you start gravitating towards? Because I feel like the subject matter you cover is a reflection of yourself, like what you're interested in.
Yeah, it was always more of covering, people on recovery journeys, and I still try to do that even now to this day. But people who struggle, who are homeless, people who are living in tough environments. I remember I did this story when I was at 27 with this girl up in East End who was basically living in I want to say like a 12 by 12 shack.
With like 4 kids?
Yes.
Yeah,
do you remember this story?
I not
actually
only,
you put me onto the story.
Yeah, I remember. I know exactly what you're talking about.
You put me onto the story. That's funny. Yes,
that was wild. When I stumbled upon that house, I was like, nah, somebody needs to know that people live like this out here.
Yep. You put me onto that story, and I spoke to her, and like her husband or her boyfriend at the time had gotten a serious car accident or something, and
he had died.
Yeah, he died. One of her kids was in the car.
Right, that was that car accident during the 2017 election.
Yep.
That collided by Warren Connolly's house.
Yep. And so she.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, and so she was.
Yeah, no, I can hear you.
Yeah, she was going through it in life, and
what a situation. Because it's literally probably the size of the studio that we're in now. It wasn't a big environment, and also like I think her sister and her sister's boyfriend like lived in an adjacent shack. It's just
it was. The place was so small that the bathroom was outside.
Yeah.
right? And it was all clustered up. When I went into the house, it was like you had a bed, you had a one burner stove over here piled up on a bunch of clothes, and
it's like, this is a fire hazard.
yeah,
It's the whole thing.
it was, and 4 people lived in this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about a space that is smaller than some people's walk-in closets.
Yeah, literally, it is, or like sheds or
Yeah,
whatnot. Yeah,
yeah.
like I think 12
Like
by
a
12.
shed. Yeah, like a shed.
12 by 12, I think, is putting it very fair.
In fact, it probably was a shed that she just moved into.
Yeah. But geez, yeah, when I saw that level of poverty, and Cayman has this reputation of like, oh, we're so rich here and whatnot. But to see like that level of poverty, it's like, no, someone needs to know about this.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's-
no.
That's why I
100%.
called you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and those stories are the ones that, when you're passionate about stuff like that,
Yeah.
it translates in your writing too, because you know exactly what the heck you're talking about.
Exactly.
You know,
What was the response you got from that story?
it was overwhelming. A lot of people, to no surprise to me, were shocked
Yeah.
that these are the circumstances in Cayman. And some people weren't shocked. They understand that this is the reality, but this is the part of Cayman that a lot of people likes to cover up.
Oh, definitely. And
Yeah.
if my memory serves me correct, it's not like where those people live. It's not like on the main road or even like off a main road. It's
Right.
like in the bush, so to speak.
Right.
Like you have to know exactly where to go. I just remember the street name, but I'm not going to air these people out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was hard to find. Yeah.
But I'm glad that worked out for you. Yeah. Do you have any Cayman 27 stories you want to share?
Well, I think the one that people most know me for is when I walk through that sargassum. Boy. That was Andrew Harris's doing.
Yeah, I remember that. You two, he filmed it, right?
Yeah, he filmed it.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. He was like, "Hey, it would be a great stand-up if you go into that sargassum." And I was like, "Not a chance." And he said, "Trust me when I tell you, this will make for great TV."
Oh, yes.
And I remember the fishermen were there scaling fish and throwing the guts in the sargassum right where I had to get in. And,
Sounded like an episode of Fear Factor.
boy, I tell you, that was something. But it still lives on to this day, and that's what it's about at the end of the day.
I honestly, I miss Cayman 27, and I'm sad, even though I'm not like, I mean, none of us are. It's the station died, but like, I feel like that day was a sad day for Cayman. The work we did, it honestly, I felt like we were civil servants.
I agree.
I didn't feel like I felt like I worked for the people,
I
and I was proud to do it too.
I agree.
Yeah.
No, it was an incredible piece of Cayman history that left there.
Yeah.
And 27 closed down.
Sad day. I still have the photos on my phone, like of the last broadcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you were there in the studio. I wasn't there in the studio. I was away.
Is that when you went to go start MMA training?
That's correct. Yeah.
So when Cayman 27 closed down, you decided to go into MMA, which...
Yeah, I was...
I mean, I at the time, I only knew you as the guy that sat next to me, right? So I don't know your backstory or nothing like that. But I just thought it was interesting. Like, dang, I never thought that guy would be interested in like fighting. He seems like a reasonable, friendly guy. What inspired you to get into MMA?
Well,
because you were young at 27. You were like what, 21?
I was around 21 then. Yeah.
So when most people are looking to go to college, because Jevy, he had worked and then he was going to college. So he had worked a couple years and then went to college, and that's why he left and I left for whatever reason I had. But then you were like, well, you were 21, so you could, do whatever.
Yeah, no, it's true. And what actually helped me in my environment that I grew up in was boxing.
Yeah.
That was a guy by the name of Donnie Anglin. He trained Charles Whitaker for a while, and Donnie saw me one day at the track, and he said, "Oh, well, I was arguing with somebody over there," and he said, "You want to take out those frustrations? Why you don't come over to the gym and fight with some of those boys over there?" And I remember my first sparring session in the boxing gym, I got my ass handed to me. And after that, I was like, yeah, I love this. I love this, and I want to make sure that I get better so that this doesn't happen again.
What about getting your ass handed to you was like, hey, actually, this feels pretty good?
I don't know, man. Me and my wife talks about this all the time. It's something about, I guess, it's putting myself in harm's way that just gives me that adrenaline boost. It makes me feel like I'm alive in a sense. And I can't explain the feeling that you get when you know that you're about to get into that ring and fight with somebody. People call it butterflies. People call it nerves. You're so anxious, but when it's all said and done, you feel like you accomplished something. You feel like you almost faced your fears in a way, and overcome them. Win, lose, or draw, you feel like you accomplished something. And yeah, I don't know. I got addicted to that feeling, but boxing was just too one-dimensional for me. After a couple of years, I did a couple amateur fights in boxing.
How did you do?
I won 4 and lost 2 amateur fights.
All right.
Yeah.
Look at you.
That's how that went. And yeah, I just fell out of love with it over a couple of years, and I'd go back there every now and then to spar and train some of the guys, but I started watching MMA, and I just started to love that sport. And I was like, man, this is where I can use all of my limbs. I can use my legs and my arms, and I can grapple and all this other stuff. And I started doing jiu-jitsu while I was at Cayman 27. And I fell in love with that too. So I was like, I want to take this to the next level. I want to actually pursue this. So when 27 closed down, it was like, all right, this is a perfect opportunity.
Right.
Let me go over to the States and test the waters. And I went over there and I trained with guys who are in the UFC today. Guys like Billy Quarantillo and Matt Favola. Gilbert Burns stopped into the gym every now and then. This was over at Florida, Tampa, Florida South gym there. It's a jiu-jitsu gym.
How long were you in the States for?
So I was in the States for a couple of months. All I know is it was a couple of months. And then I had I did an expedition fight, and then that was my way of my coach saying, all right, we want to see if you're ready for your first amateur MMA fight.
For those who don't know, what is an expedition fight? Yeah,
so an expedition fight is basically it's a real fight, but it just doesn't go towards your record.
Oh, okay.
And there's no win or loser, no winner or loser in the fight, basically. So,
right.
But I mean, if you get knocked out, you get
knocked out.
You get knocked out.
But it doesn't go.
But it doesn't go on your record.
On your official record.
Yeah, on your official amateur or pro record.
It's just locker room talk.
Yeah. I competed in a couple of jiu-jitsu tournaments over there, and I did the expedition fight, and we had my first fight locked in to fight a guy in Tallahassee, and I had to come down to Cayman because my grandmother passed away. So I came over to Cayman with hopes of going back for this fight.
Right.
And then COVID started.
Oh, dang.
In the States. COVID started in the States. And yeah, at that time when I came back from my grandmother's funeral, right after that actually is when I reconnected with my now wife and my former boss, who was like, well, if you ain't going, I got a job for you.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And
yeah. And this is when you're talking about Kevin.
Kevin
Morales.
Yeah.
Because when Kevin became news director of The Compass, I believe.
Yep.
So basically, Cayman 27 dissolved. and then became Cayman Compass. Or
Well, a lot of their reporters came over there.
Merger.
Yeah.
And Kevin's was moved over as news director.
Yeah.
And brought you on.
Yep. Yeah, well, they had just lost a sports writer, and I didn't have any plan to get back into journalism. I was going to do something else.
What were you going to do?
Probably just MMA. I was going to.
You wanted to go back?
Yeah,
into MMA?
I wanted to get back into it.
But
after everything settled down,
because of this pandemic.
But the pandemic was at the time I just thought it was a minor roadblock, and now it will dissolve after a while.
How long did you think a while was?
I thought it was going to settle down for like 1 month, 2 months.
Yeah, that's what I thought. 2 years later.
And it didn't work out that way. So I just kind of got hooked, and life happened. And 2 years ago, actually, I was going to pursue it again. So I started training here locally.
Mm-hmm. Which gym?
I was training at the Performance Lab under Floyd Trumpet.
All right.
And Floyd had liaised with one of the promoters in Trinidad, and we had a fight lined up with a Guyanese boy at one of their fight nights. And I was so excited and so pumped, and I was training so hard for that fight. And I was rolling at Ronnie Hughes' gym, Iron Shore, and my shoulder popped out.
Oh, no.
Like 2 weeks before the fight. Shoulder popped right out, like 3 inches out of the rotator cuff.
Oh, my God.
And
did they put it back in?
Well, it was a recommended tip, but I actually popped back in. I popped it back in myself on the mats that day. And, it recommended surgery and all this other stuff. And I didn't tell my coach about it because I still wanted to fight.
Yeah.
But it was hurting really bad up until the last week of the fight. And I told him about it. Then I was like, listen, I got injured. And he was like, we ain't going over there to lose. I'm calling the fight off.
Dang.
And, yeah. I just, I guess it all worked out to be the way it is. I'm not.
Yeah, because it's not like at the last minute you're like, nah. You chicken out. Like, no, like you literally popped your shoulder out 3 inches.
Yeah.
It's a serious.
Yeah. Still lingering pains even to this day, to be honest.
See?
Yeah.
Now imagine if you fought on that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. I know, but I'm stubborn. I would have gone out there and fight with one arm, to be fair.
That's beautiful. So you're now at the Compass, and you're now the sports reporter at the Compass.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Before we get into sports reporting, actually, how did you get into sports reporting? Because, I didn't know you were like, because usually sports reporters are like the athlete and whatnot. And coming at Cayman 27, it was Kevin before it was Jordan. But like those are like sports guys, right? Who do fantasy football.
Right.
And can talk to you about, the summer of 2003 and in this stadium and whatnot. So what got you into sports reporting, not coming from like the most sports background?
So what's funny is, and I might get in trouble for telling this story if Jordan Armanice hears this.
Don't worry about Jordan Armanice.
But
what a guy.
Yeah, Jordan.
What a character.
He was not in the good books, basically, at Cayman 27.
I wonder why.
And Kevin basically said to me, listen, I think we're going to have you replace Jordan because we don't think we're going to keep him around for much longer, basically. And what happened was he started to slowly get me to do the sports segment of Cayman 27.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started transitioning in there, but Jordan ended up sticking around. So until the company closed down.
Right. But you're dabbling in sports.
But I was
reporting,
already dabbling in sports.
Getting your contacts up, things like that.
And I already have I had a sporting background because I competed for Cayman at Carifta in track and field.
Oh, so you do have a sport. See, look at me, not knowing my stuff.
Yeah. I competed for Cayman track and field. and obviously I did boxing and stuff for a while, and I played football in the league, under 17 league for a while as well. But
Do you think the one thing when we speak about Jordan Armanies and Kevin Morales, they were not from Cayman. They moved to Cayman. But, and I bring this up to say you grew up playing sports in Cayman. Therefore, you would know these coaches from when you played football, when you did track, and things like that. Do you think those relationships and your involvement in Cayman sports at a young age helped you now in your career being a sports reporter?
yeah, I think in certain sports it did. But over time, I built a network, and I built trust in a lot of these people. But I was already established, obviously, in track and boxing. And those guys over in those sports, they certainly hold me accountable whenever I write articles on them, because it's like, how are you going to do your people like that? But yeah, over time I've built a pretty broad network here in Cayman when it comes to all the different associations.
That's good. Let's talk about the association you have with the Boyz to Men. How are you for time, by the way?
We can go a couple more minutes.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, we can talk about you. You give a lot back to the community through the Boyz to Men program. Could you talk to us about what that program is and how did you get involved?
So, Boyz to Men is basically a program that elevates at-risk youth, try to change their trajectory, if you will, from northward prison or the grave, or just being a regular Joe on the street asking for money or making poor decisions on drugs or whatever the case is.
Right.
We wanna just assist as much as these kids as we possibly can. And Christopher Murray,
great guy.
Yes, the founder of the program. It all started with me and him probably some 15 years ago. I was one of 3 boys to start that program. And
so you were in call it the pilot program.
Correct, yeah.
Oh, wow.
The launch of it, the tryout. It was, I don't even know if there was a name. It was Boyz to Men at the time. It was just him and 3 boys, really. And the program just sort of took a life of its own over time, and people realized that this is different from all the other associations on island or nonprofits on island that are doing one-on-one mentorships, and it's not to take away from them,
right?
Because they're doing great with all that they're doing as well, one-to-one, and at the time it was a big brother, big sister,
right?
But Boyz to Men just took on a different approach when it came to targeting these kids, and we did it as a group effort rather than a one-to-one effort. But there are cases where we do pull some of the boys aside to try and work with them. Sorry, I don't know if I answered your question. I think I just went on a tangent.
No, that's I guess that's why I'm here. So that's how you got involved in the program, actually being a student in the inception. What was that like? What was the moment like for you when you were brought back into the program, but as a senior or a supervisor? Can you talk to us about that? Did you speak to Mr. Murray and say, "Hey, listen, I want to be involved," or how did that? How did you rekindle that?
What happened was 27. So when he started seeing me on TV, he was like, "Wait a second,
is that same?
Is this the same Seaford? What's going on here? Is there this is a miracle kind of thing?" And then he started calling me and saying, I got a group of boys that I want you to come and talk to and sort of give some inspiration to. And it kind of started there, just going to the schools and giving talks to the kids, and then, you know, him, myself, and Simon Miller came together one day and said, hey, listen, you want to just turn this into a program and have the three of us just kind of head it up.
Is Simon Miller the guy from National Drug Council?
That's right. Yeah.
With the dreads?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's the guy. And yeah, you know, then we started as Boyz II Men, but it still wasn't registered as a nonprofit. So everything that we did from, I would say, 2017 straight up until 2020 came out of our pockets. We invested in these boys by ourselves.
That's beautiful.
And then in 2020, we registered as a nonprofit for the first time. And once that happened, then more support started to come on board, because now it's like, well, we can actually reach out for help because we have an account now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Nobody was going to give us any money before like that, because they wanted to make sure that this thing is legit. This is not just three rough men asking for money. It worked out. It's an incredible program. I'm incredibly happy to be a part of it and giving back to a lot of the kids that sort of mirror who I was growing up as well. It brings true joy to me. My job does not bring me the satisfaction that program brings me.
Where do you find that joy in Boyz II Men that you don't at the Compass? Because I would say both. You do great work. You know, you represent the sports community. You uplift people. People in the community can see like their nephew and whatnot doing well, and read a piece about them. And it's a part of history, especially with the Olympics that just happened. You know, with Jordan Crooks and how well he did. Even though he lost the finals, he won in our hearts. And you were the guy to interview him. So you do great work like that. But where do you get more satisfaction in the Boyz II Men work?
I think with the two, I think it comes down to pride and passion. I get a lot of pride when I can acknowledge people for their hard work in sports, and I feel good, especially if they're Caymanian excelling on an international stage. I really feel good covering that. And bringing light to their success. Because
we do well in, sorry to cut you off, but we do well in swimming, tennis, squash, and track. Yep.
There might be a couple other sports that we do well in, but it's not coming to me.
I think those are the main four. People go to Carifta and this tournament and that tournament, flying all over the place for.
Yeah. But when it comes to Boyz II Men, that's a bit more deeper, obviously, because of where I come from. So it's I don't know, it just makes me feel at home in a way, being around a lot of these kids that I can relate to. I can't relate to everybody in sports,
right?
You know, but I can cover the sports and feel good that my work is bringing their success some justice. But yeah, it's a weird thing when it comes to dealing with at-risk kids. It just makes me feel very happy and comfortable. I feel like I'm in my element. I don't need a script in front of me to deal with those kids. I went to Northward Prison the other day. They opened up they reopened rather their gym, and I remember walking through Northward and seeing a bunch of people that I knew, people that I didn't know, shouting my name. And I told my wife about this. I said to her, I felt like I was right at home when I walked through Northward. It was a weird feeling.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because Northward is a prison.
It is a prison, but the people there, I feel like I have a deep connection with. I feel like I understand them on a different level. Not all of them, because some of them are in there for some gruesome things. But Yeah, it was a weird feeling. I just felt like I could talk to any of them. It's a place where if a stranger walked in there, they'd feel uncomfortable almost. Yeah. But I didn't feel that way at all. I didn't feel that way at all. It was very, very weird. Because a lot of them I hadn't seen for years either. But yeah, it's just one of those things that goes deeper than I can explain. It's just a relatable thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm. What is the message that you help inspire the kids with and the Boyz II Men program?
I think it varies on story to story, but I think it, in a nutshell, it really comes down to just persevering. We all face battles in this life, every single last one of us. It doesn't matter your background or your nationality, your color, or whatever the case is. We all face different struggles. And I think for a lot of these kids, their struggles are just slightly different because, they have to deal with crime and being counted out from a very, very young age. Very, very young age. I saw a video the other day that went viral with a guy masked up and he was shouting.
Yeah, and you had written something or said something online about it. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so when people see a video like that,
because it was a kid masked up and he was saying like, I'm gonna kill and I think he named off some people that he wanted to kill.
I'm gonna go from West Bay to Georgetown and people are gonna die and all sorts of different stuff. And but when I saw that video, I didn't see what a lot of people saw. People saw a criminal, get him in jail. This is disgusting. This is a horrible person. I saw somebody that the system and his environment, and by extension his parents, failed.
Dang.
Because I know that he didn't want to be the person that he has become. Nobody is born bad. Nobody is born, unless you have mental health issues or something. But nobody in their right mind is going to say at 5, 6, 7 years old, I want to be a killer.
Right.
Nobody.
Your environment.
Your environment causes that to happen. And when you see things on TV, you start watching TV and you see people who are successful, then you actually start to have a switch in your mindset and you be like, well, I want that life. Well, how am I going to get there? And what happens is they have no trajectory to get to that point. All they have are their surroundings. And their surroundings, unfortunately, just takes them over. They become a part of it. And it's hard to get out if you stay in it too long. When you're in that environment for too long, like that guy in that video is, it's difficult to now change his trajectory. So his unfortunately, I wouldn't say that there is no hope in changing a person like him. But there's certainly hope to change them when they're slightly younger than him, right? And even though it sounds impossible, it's possible. Because I was, 15, 16 when I started to make a change after doing all sorts of different things. But when you're too deep into the law and you get caught into certain things, man, it's incredibly difficult to escape. And they just succumb to it. They lose hope and they just accept that this is their reality and this is who they are, and there's no way out. So this is who I'm going to be because this is all I have.
And your message to these kids is, do you help them figure out mentally how to see a future outside of the surroundings? Because in a sense, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're in an environment and that's what you know. You wake up in this environment, you may leave to go to school, but you come back from school and you're in this environment. Easter break, you're in this environment. Christmas break, summer break. Since this environment is surrounding you at all times, how does one, I guess, get the inspiration to not become a product of that environment?
Well, there's two things. The first one, I think, is just try to limit the amount of mistakes you make as a teenager, because the system is unforgiving and they won't take it off of your record.
And this is the judicial system.
Yes.
Right.
If you get into too much trouble when you're a teenager, and they keep that on your record, it's going to be incredibly difficult for you to get by in life, right? So I try to tell them, don't make too much or crazy mistakes. Try to stay out of the criminal stuff, right? The second thing for people to change their trajectory from that life is depending on another person. It's not even them. It's depending on people giving them the opportunity. Even if, say, they had a criminal record. Oftentimes you have people that have criminal records who want a better life for themselves and they apply for jobs, but they're denied. But what if you gave that person that job? What if you tried with that person?
In a sense, I don't know about you or your record, but in a sense, do you think that CDG gave you that opportunity?
100%.
Even though it was, what were you, like, delivering?
I was in the warehouse. Yeah.
Even though it's small, it's still an opportunity that you can build upon.
Yeah. No, 100%. It takes you away from what you would rather been around. You know, the devil. There's a saying that says the devil finds work for idle hands. If you don't have anything doing, then you're going to end up idling, doing something stupid. Right? You're going to end up hanging around people who are in the same position as you, who probably sitting down behind a yard bunning ganja, right? Or whatever.
Yeah. Instead of working,
right? And then it jumps from one thing to the next. Now it's not just smoking. It's now, how can I get some more of this so I can sell?
Because now you have a drug habit
to
supply.
So I know people out to buy this from me. How can I sell this to make some money?
Yeah.
Right? And it just grows and grows and grows until you start small and you get big. And you get so caught up into this life. It takes you over. It takes you don't even realize how far gone you've gone into it until you're in cuffs or in front of the judge and she's telling you, listen, what you have just done is going to place you in jail for such and such amount of years. And it's a very slippery slope.
Yeah.
And it's something that I always encourage the boys to just stay out of it altogether. Just try not to make that decision. But if you do end up making a stupid mistake as a teenager, I hope that employers out there can see past a mistake that was made years ago. Because we all make mistakes as teenagers, let's be honest here, right? But unfortunately, employers are not forgiving, you know, and they don't really care if you're trying to change your life or you're trying to make a difference. They count you out. They see that and that's it. No chance. And if you aren't going to give someone a chance, then don't expect them to do better. We have to help one another in this life. We really do. You know, if you don't want to give this guy an opportunity to eat food, right? Then you have left him no choice. They say even a man's best friend, a dog, if you leave him without food for days and days, he'll get desperate.
Yeah.
And he'll eat whatever he can find.
Yeah.
It's the same concept for humans. If this person gets desperate, they will do whatever they need to do by any means necessary to survive. If that means steal, if that means kill, that's what they're going to do. Because they're left with no choice. If they try to apply for jobs but nobody is giving them a job, then what are they supposed to do? Sit around and starve? No.
Yeah. Because you still have to live.
You have to. And what are go and what are they going to do? If the other option, they will have two options. Here's their two options. Three options rather. One, actually, let me just list out the four options that you give somebody in a situation like that. One, apply for a job. Okay, you're unsuccessful. The second option is starve. You don't have any money, then just starve. Be good, do nothing, and starve. The third option you give them to steal or kill or commit crimes. And the fourth option you give them is to sit on the roadside with a cup begging for money.
Yeah. Dang.
That's what it comes down to.
And you believe all those four options can be defeated by somebody giving an opportunity.
The latter three, yes, those latter three options can be.
Yeah, because one of the options was apply.
Right.
Yeah, but an opportunity really can help somebody in dire straits get on the straight and narrow, no matter how small.
Opportunity is key, man. Opportunity is key. Opportunity is what got me to where I am today, without having anything to offer besides word of mouth, telling this person that I'm going to give it my all. I won't disappoint you. That's all I have. I didn't have any qualifications to show nothing. This person, Kevin Morales, gave me an opportunity, and I said, I'm going to take this and I'm going to run with it.
That's beautiful. I'm sure he'll like to hear that.
Yeah. And I think that needs to be done more often. It needs to be. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in this system where we look down on people. And the funny thing about it is, right, a lot of the people that rub shoulders with me today and shake my hand and look in my face and tell me that they're proud of me, they're the same ones that wouldn't have given me an opportunity when I was a young boy.
Dang.
And I know that for a fact. They're the same ones that would look at a lot of these kids who sag their pants on the road making poor decisions and say, he won't turn out to be anything. But when you're on top of the world, everybody wants to be your friend.
Wow. I don't know what to think about that statement. It's almost sad that it's like until you're worthy of getting something, I don't want anything to do with you.
That's it. But how are you gonna? How is anybody gonna get there? Even let's just strip away. Let's just strip away poor. Let's strip away the poor aspect of it or a tough environment aspect of it, right? Let's look at it from a kid who's just graduating college with a bachelor's degree, and they come home, and nobody's giving them an opportunity, even though they have the qualifications, which is the reality here in Cayman. People that have degrees in all sorts of different fields have to come home, sit down, apply for jobs, don't hear anything back.
Well, that's why in the Cayman Compass there was that article about the brain drain.
Exactly.
You get the government has great scholarship programs. People get this great education, come home, see there's nothing for them in their own country, and have to leave. And I wonder when we'll see the impacts of what's happening now with the brain drain.
Yeah, unfortunately, Philip, I think that'll continue to be the reality, and that might sound very pessimistic of me, but it's the truth.
Yeah. Well, elections next year, so we'll see if Cayman goes on a new trajectory.
More empty promises coming.
As much as I'd love to talk to you about politics, I see your phone was going off, and you did agree for an hour, and I've definitely taken 18 minutes and 43 seconds more than we have scheduled. So I want to end this with, what was it like for you to start your family as a young man? Because you're, 25 now?
No, I'm older than that, but I won't say my age over the thing, but I'm older than that. Boy, we started on a rough note, and we're going to end on a positive note. Because I can tell you right now, my family means everything to me. Everything. My life my family is my life. And I know that a lot of people will say things like, oh, you got to put yourself first and you got to do this and you got to do that. And for me, it's like, as long as I make my family happy, I'll be happy. That's the way I think about it. You know, my wife is an incredible, incredible woman. And I owe so much of my way of thinking today because of her. Mm-hmm. You know, she has really molded my brain into a more constructive way and making me see life from a different angle. And yeah, I'm incredibly grateful for her. You know, and I don't know how much of the viewers are spiritual people, but I try to base our marriage in God and try to keep him at the center of everything. And I think it is worked out perfect thus far. I have never met someone as incredible as her. And you know, we had a kid, my little girl. She's just over a year old now, and she's just added even more joy to our marriage. You know, it's I tell you the truth, I don't know how I got to this place in life, but I'm incredibly fortunate and lucky and blessed, whatever you want to call it. But I don't take it for granted at all. I don't. But yeah, my family is everything, man. And I would encourage, especially the men out there, to try to lead by example. Try to not fall into these trends that we have today, and you know, treating or putting yourself first and you know, not appreciating your family. And a lot of people will say that they do, but their actions show otherwise. Mm-hmm. You know, family is everything. Love is everything in this world. It's the only thing that matters. There's a little song that goes out, this love is the only thing that matters in the end. It's so true. You don't see, in fact, a survey was done. A professor, I forget the university is from, he went around and he interviewed about 200 people who were on their deathbed. Mm-hmm. And he asked them, what is your biggest regret in life? And they said, I wish I loved my family more. I wish I loved my family more. They didn't say getting a degree. Mm. They didn't say buying a fancy car, buying a 5-bedroom mansion. They didn't say going on more vacations, more trips, being at work longer. Love. Whatever you have are the greatest relationships that you have in this life, the relationships that you feel mean the most to you. Cherish those, groom those, make sure that they are at your priority over everything else. It doesn't matter what's going on. 'Cause most things in life is just selfishness. Mm-hmm. Just think about self. Oh, I want to do this. Why can't I do this? Why can't I? But if you share the same mindset as in, I'm going to do for you. Forget about me. I'm going to do for you in this relationship. And your partner reciprocates that and said, I'm going to do for you. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do for you. Oh my gosh, you're going to have life made. But if it's, I'm going to do for you and I'm going to do for me, mm-hmm. or I'm going to do for me and you're going to do for you.
That doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. But that's the case. Yeah. That's the case. I got to answer this.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
All right, let's continue.
Yeah. Well, my last question is, and you may have answered it, but maybe you have something else to say. My last question is, do you have any advice for, people just out there in their life, just any general advice, like, wear sunscreen or tie your shoelaces or don't tie your shoelaces and wear slip-ons all the time, or what do you got for the people?
Yeah, I did a graduation speech at the Lighthouse School recently, but I was speaking to everyone in that audience when I said something along the lines of, it doesn't matter what position you have, doesn't matter your wealth, it doesn't matter about all your possessions and materialism and all this other stuff. None of that stuff matters in this life. I said I'd rather be friends with a poor, good man than to be friends with an awful rich man. The only thing that matters in this life is being a good person. And that is easier said than done. Trust me. I am guilty. It is not easy for me to always be a good person, but try. Try to be a good person. Because, and I know that this is said a lot these days, you don't know what anybody is going through.
No.
You really and truly have no clue what anybody is going through. And sometimes it's good to take a step back before we be nasty towards somebody and put ourselves in the shoes of them. If you are saying, okay, this person is probably going through a hard time, is this the right thing to say to them at this point? It's difficult for us to rewind like that, but if we can do that and love the people that matter to us most, put the people that matter to us most first, you'll see a lot of change. And stop listening to things that you know that aren't right for you. Just surround yourself by things that'll help you. I feel like humans are probably the only living organism on the planet that walks straight towards danger, knowing that it's dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get you.
Yeah, we can be a bit stupid at times for a lack of better ways of putting it. But I just think that family is key. Your loved ones are key. And when I say family, I don't mean relatives or people that share your blood. I mean people that you consider family.
People you love.
People you love. Yeah, because I have people that share my blood that I don't consider family. Dang. And I have boys that I consider brothers.
And they're not related to you from Adam.
They're not related to me from Adams.
Yeah, I get you.
But I love them. I love them, and I'd go to battle for them because I know that they are at the end of the day real with me. They're honest with me, and they care about me just as much as I care about them. And it shows. Most importantly, it shows. And action speaks louder than words.
It does indeed.
So.
Well, Seaford, thank you so much for. I think this was a great interview. I'm glad we got to talk like this. I wish you nothing but success in your future.
Much love, brother.
Thank you for listening to another episode of World Talk. If you or someone you know is going through distressing time, please seek professional help.